that it isn't a burden, but it's actually a useful tool. And we always remember, and at Alpha Plus we always say, technology is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. It's a tool. So what we're looking at, I'm just going to ask these last two questions. What we're looking at is professional development. What kind of professional development supports practitioners? But before we get there, I just wanted to ask a question. Forget the top part, because I think I already blathered on about that. Except that, of course, the second one there I think is really critical. We need to really have good evaluation models. You can't just throw technology at a problem. Oh, we gave everybody a computer, therefore everybody knows how to use it and use it effectively. We have to have, within our programs, good evaluation. We have to know which questions to ask, and we have to try to find answers to them. But what's the role of adult literacy programs and practitioners? I mean, what does this have to do with the kind of instruction that you deliver? And do we need to consider digital literacy as a basic skill? And those are questions that we're using to try to keep our minds open as we work through this literature. So I'll just ask you to consider those, and I'll move on. And this is a statement that I wrote for myself as I was reading, because you can get carried in 10 different directions when you're reading for hours on end. Yes, there are many, many benefits, many opportunities. But what about the instructors? How are instructors to be supported to make best use of these tools? So I started to look at models of professional development in what people are learning, particularly in the UK, where they've done a lot of work around professional development, and in New Zealand, about what good professional development around technology could look like. And the one big thing that we know, and I think that people, know this already, skills training is not enough. You can't just get a bunch of practitioners in a room and say, here's a great program, learn how to use it, you're done. Tick, trained. That doesn't work. Although practitioners and instructors like to see and benefit from seeing concrete examples of how to use something, that professional development around technology is often very technocentric. And I know I've done this myself. I used to go out on the road around Ontario showing people software programs, back before we were using web-based programs a lot. And that's what I did. I talked about the program. I never really talked to the practitioners. And the idea was, oh yeah, now they all know how to use that. That's fine, done. That doesn't work. Instructors have to be at the center of their own learning. You have to take into account that instructors too have different learning styles. They have different learning needs. They have different comfort levels with technology. And critically, instructors have values, and you need to recognize that and respect that. And this I'm taking from the literature. This is from years of research in the UK and in the US, where practitioners were surveyed, where various models of PD were offered to them, where they were offered opportunities to feedback. The first one, I think, is just so stunningly obvious, but I think when I was doing that software training, I didn't think about that. You need to see how it will benefit their students. They're not even going to bother, why should they, figuring out how it works unless they can attach it to what it is that they're trying to do. Instructors need time to experiment and take risks. And instructors, because they're people, most of them anyway, need positive experience. They need to see themselves succeeding. Just as they try to support their students to recognize their own successes, when you're learning something new, you need to have a chance to succeed. They also need the opportunity for critical feedback. And so this model is called continuing professional development, and it's really been looked at quite carefully in the UK, that you don't just get people together in a room, train them how to do something, send them away, and never contact them again, never follow up, give them no opportunity to talk to each other or to reflect on what they've learned. And the models of continuing professional development are communities of practice is one, where people get together online, formally and informally exchange learning, ideas, questions, explorations, issues. The other model that seems to be pointing towards success is what they call teacher inquiry, where teachers get together, pose questions, and try to answer them together around the use of technology. Or critical reflection, where teachers are given the opportunity to really reflect together, alone, to share on what they're learning, what it means, how it affects their practice. Now, I know this sounds like, la la land, but really it's effective. And I think when we're looking at professional development and we're looking at the integration of technology and we're looking at supporting people to use technology effectively, these are the things that we need to be looking at. And as I said earlier, in this Go Online project where they surveyed quite a few hundred Canadian literacy practitioners, practitioners use online learning for their own professional development in Canada quite extensively. There are barriers to its use, but they're very enthusiastic. So I think that we really need to think about how we can support people to create online communities of practice so we can learn from each other. And then we need to evaluate professional development properly. And I think that's kind of a missing piece often. Like we often have what a colleague of mine calls smiley face evaluation. I liked it, I didn't like it. And I've noticed, actually, been very happy to see the evaluation sheets at this conference are trying to dig a little deeper because they want actually, so I think evaluation is a huge piece. We have to begin to understand what works for people and why and what people want in terms of professional development in technology. So I'm almost done, and you must be very relieved. Some ideas. I think we need to find ways to collaborate. That's what the literature is telling me, that if people can't share what they're learning, share their questions, feel safe in exploring and experimenting, learning doesn't happen. So we need to find a way to do that. A couple of years ago at Alpha Plus, we tried to put together a national consortium of organizations across the country that were using technology so that we could create these, forums. We were partially successful, and we're really going to try to move that forward again, because we think, if you think about technology, I've been on and on and on about how many opportunities and this and that. Let's use it to do the things that we need to do. And here's my fun one at the end. Because in sum, a laptop for every single literacy practitioner from coast to coast to coast. Because one of the key things in learning how to use technology is you have to use technology. You have to have access. You have to have access to good, up-to-date equipment. You have to have it in your workplace and in your home. You have to have access. And in some states in the United States, what they did was give practitioners laptops to take home and say, here, it's yours, use it for your online learning, for your professional development, to hone your skills. Guess what? They had a whole bunch of very enthusiastic, very effective, very proficient users of technology in very short order. So this is what I think should happen. I think every practitioner should get, as soon as you come into the profession, here's your laptop. Here's a 1-800 number for tech help. Go for it. And in this program in Newfoundland, one of the most amazing things, and anybody who's here from Ontario, I want you to take this away because we've got to get this. Every student in that online program gets a $50 a month stipend for internet connectivity. So, you take down the barriers, then people will move forward. That's the end of my presentation. I'll hand you over to Matthias. Make sure if you want to this is a developing work. It's in process. It will change. It will be added to. It will be written up, I hope, in plain language. give me your email, and I'm very happy to share it with you and to get feedback from you as it develops. Okay, Matthias? I'll take my stuff out of the way.
Thanks, Maria. I won't be able to talk as knowledgeably about what I'm talking about as Maria. I was part of a bigger team. Maria was part of that too. That was looking at, and I hope it's not too dry, that was looking at the essential skills framework, especially the computer use. You might be familiar with that, and I'm in no way an expert on essential skills. We worked with an expert team, consulting firm who are expert in essential skills. And we started that work as part of the development of the Ontario Adult Literacy Curriculum that's underway. So also the things I'm going to say about the OLLC are not final. It's still being developed. They more reflect the stage that it was at, I think, in early, maybe in April or May of this year. And like we alluded to before, we wanted to take an approach that stepped outside and beyond thinking of technology as just software and using specific programs like Word or Excel or something like that, and think of it more also in terms of web-based tools, in terms of technologies that are being used in the workplace, like digital devices for inventory or little things, but also in a way that the technology skills that learners need to fully participate in the world of the web and in the world of the workplace that is more and more technology based. So I'll walk you through a few of the processes that we did. I hope that's not too dry. You might be familiar with the computer use essential skill. Reflects kind of the state of where things were at in the late 90s. So we realized, as a starting point, and this is essential skills is also part with the IELTS. A starting point for the competency development of the Ontario Adult Literacy Curriculum. We realized that it needed to be updated. It needed to be kind of dragged into the world we live in, because as it stands now, it's just too narrowly defined, which is normal. This is like 10 years ago. It feels a little bit out of date, and we wanted to also put it more in a context, not just in a learning context, not just in a software context, but in the context of work, family, and community. So really that civic participation and participation in the work environment idea. Maria did a scan of literature, framework resources about technology skills in the education context in the US, UK, Ireland, Australia, and New Zealand. Mostly those countries because it's quite easy to compare what they've done to the context here. And we also looked at skill levels, computer use, self-assessments of the Ontario Skills Passport, and Learn to Learn. Some of you might be familiar with that. That's the first 4 steps in the process that we used, which is consistent with, just to give you an idea of what that actually means, to try to come up with a framework. And the idea of a framework is really important because we can it's different pieces of a puzzle, I think. Like a literature review and trying to see what's out there and talking about those things is one piece and a very important piece. Another piece is to contribute to a discussion around a framework so we can move closer to developing some standards. And by that I don't mean standards that have to be enforced or something like that, but actually something meaningful that some targets. Because who's to say that knowing how to write an email is important? Maybe it's not, right? Maybe it's not important to learners. Maybe it's not important to practitioners. So who's to say that? So eventually somebody or collectively we have to say, this is an important skill to have. We need to know this. Our learners need to know this, and then we can move forward. Otherwise, there's no So we need a kind of framework to understand what those things really are. So we started with a task collection and consultation with the delivery streams in the literacy and basic skills sector here in Ontario. We did some task sorting into the use of digital technologies in terms of, and we found that there's two, or we tried to understand them as